Look huge. Freaking out. Eric. Hey, do you want to be remarkably obnoxious to your viewership? No. Well, you are. Maybe that's the thumbnail. Thumbnail the center. I know, right? So, I mean, I bring this up at all because I recently heard the rumor come out. I don't know if any of you have heard about it, but apparently the Mario RPG has already come out as a leak. If anyone, heard about that noise in the gamerverse. To all of you awesome Switch owners, Switch PC owners, as it were, for you guys, you've already gotten Mario RPG. I recently heard about this yesterday in passing and was just like, what the fuck? And the first thing that caught my mind was, didn't this happen with another game recently? Wasn't there another game specifically for the Switch that came out early, like a leak of it? Or am I remembering it wrong? A bit too loud, hard to hear. Yeah, I turned it down a bit more. I could continue turning it down. I'm getting a lot better at looking at waveforms and being like, when is it too loud? All right. Well, how about that? Is that good? My thing is I want it to be like a happy middle, of course. Yeah, no, so as I was, this news just made me think like, wait, didn't we do this? Wasn't this something that happened before? Or am I just remembering it wrong? I don't know. Oh, you know what? I'm probably thinking of Pokemon. Wasn't there a thing where... Yeah, one of the versions of Pokemon... No! Wait, did it? Okay, I was gonna say, one of the versions of Pokemon dropped early, and it was so fucked up and broken. Was that not the case? Did it just release normally and it was fucked up and broken? Is that just what I'm thinking? That sounds more correct. The background model is from Blender, yes. I did not make this, so I'm working for a client and we have this thing of we're gonna take backgrounds made by a different person. We're commissioning the 3D artist to make these backgrounds, and then I'm putting in like lines and then somebody else is gonna color it. So yeah. See, initially I was assigned to do like a sketchy thing, but as I'm working on this, I'm just like, I can't sketch it and make it look good. The lines are already here, you know? Like there's no way I could take a table with like a straight line and just like take my sketch brush and make something like remotely good. Like it's too, somebody's already gonna come in here with a line tool and do the same thing, so why don't I? You know? Just get that part out of the way. Oh, yes. Oh. Oh. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, it was the best song ever for 1 second. My mom tried to call me 1 hour ago and I didn't pick up. I guess I'm out of the will now. Yeah, I left my phone in the bathroom. Oops. Oh. Well, I just love the way that you wrote that. There was a lot of urgency to it. It was just like a really cool thing I'd love to share right now. But I wish you would. Well, what is it? Is it Mario RPG related? Bullet Bill, the fan-made Mario game trilogy. This sounds familiar. Wasn't this a Newgrounds game, right? It had like pretty great music. Is like my one memory of it. And it was like a series of, if not Newgrounds, but like a Flash game, right? Some of my brainium is telling me. You know, whenever I hear that fucking victory music, I always think of Normal Boots, personally. Because those guys had, like, I think it was some kind of, like, running meme or something, or those guys, just for, like, a short period, were just obsessed with Mario RPG. I remember them just talking about it so much in different videos. Like, PBG would say it, JonTron would say it. Everyone was just like, oh my god, Mario RPG is the best thing ever, blah, blah, blah. And, like, to be fair, yeah, it's pretty cool. And I think those guys were, like, collectively riding a, like, nostalgia train. But I never really grew up on that game. I grew up on Paper Mario. I love that shit. Good morning, Orful. It's a Flash game trilogy on Newgrounds. You controlled the, yeah, Bullet Bill. Dodge obstacles at high speed. And yes, the, yep. I saw Oni Plays play it. I never grew up on it, but it looks cool. Looks cool as hell. Yeah. But as I was, the I grew up personally on Paper Mario, and that game was my bread and butter. It slapped. I feel like a lot of people will take different Mario RPGs and have their own like collective opinion about them. And whichever one was yours, that one is the best. Like, to me, I'm like, oh, Paper Mario's the best. And to other people, it's like, Mario RPG's the best. And to other people, it's like, oh, Superstar Saga was the best, you know? And all of them are, like, real good. But I feel like there is something very special about your first. That you always go to it, and it always makes you feel all warm and toasty. But yeah, that was me with Mario RPG. Or excuse me. Paper fucking Mario. I love Paper Mario. I love Paper Mario 1. People really, really love Thousand Year Door. I get it. It's a lot bigger. It's more expansive. Bloody, bloody, blue, blue. Blah, 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 blah. But Paper Mario 1 for the N64, very charming. And I dislike how often... I'm not going to say it's like the best game ever, whatever. I'm not even comparing it to like Mario RPG, whatever. All I'm saying is I feel like people discredit it very frequently. Like, it's not so much of a debate as like, oh, it's not as good as like Mario RPG, or like, oh, it's not as good as Thousand Year Door. It's just people don't even like talk about it. They just say like, oh yeah, that was the first one. I don't know. So disrespectful. Meanwhile, I'm just like, oh my god, it's so damn charming. The music is great. The characters are wonderful. I love the characters in Paper Mario for the N64 so much more than I do in Thousand Year Door. Genuinely. Like, I love Cooper. I love Lakitu and his dumb nickname Spike. Or excuse me, Lakalester. Lest I forget his true name. Lest I forget his dead name. Anyway, it turns out that Wolfgun, the music composer for BB3, made a very trippy-looking hack-and-slash game in 2021 along with his own music. Ooh! And is it cool? The hack-and-slash, you say? What's it called? I do like very trippy. I remember when I was doing the Rayman reviews, the only thing I could describe Rayman 1 as was trippy. And I was making like smoke weed jokes about it. Upon reflection, that seems a little short-sighted of me, but you know, whatever. It is what it is. I said what I said. Mario smoked the weed, alright? There's nothing wrong with that. Mario believes in weed rights, and I agree. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. Like weird chunk of geometry. I do not need that. I'm going to take a different layer and I'm going to start drawing this window because for some reason it's like kissing the roof here. Or not the roof, whatever. This area. It's just kissing that. I feel like that's a render glitch. Again, like this model I'm working off of is entirely for reference. This is how we save money and are able to keep the model artist around longer, is if we just have them doing a kind of low maintenance job for easy enough pay that you can just like maintain that relationship with them. And then they pay me and I do this part. So yeah, that's how you remain economical in the world of art, collaborative art. You find that happy medium because everybody needs to get paid, but sometimes you can't afford to pay everybody for beautiful, striking visuals, so you need to compromise. It is one of those things that, like, you hear it and you feel like, oh man, how scummy that this like person wasn't being paid like lots and lots of money for doing like for working for like this company or whatever. And don't get me wrong, in the news, in the buzz, and I don't know the full story, but in the buzzy newsy news, what is it? Disney are being absolute shitbags to visual artists. I'm not saying that's not the case or anything, but when you're working with visuals, your job does come out very expensive, and so often you'll need to like make compromises. But that's the point in which you make like your own rules and your own limits. So this artist we were talking to, they had like a limit of how much work they were willing to put forth before they started charging extra. That's the exact kind of negotiation you want to do when you're going into an artistic field. You want to be good at negotiating this type of stuff because unless you have an agent working with you, no one's going to advocate for you. That sounds a little scary, but when you get that across, when you understand that about this job, it becomes less scary. You become better at these sorts of conversations, and it just becomes like another part of the job. Negotiating the money, that is. And negotiating like how much work are you willing to put forth. There are a couple clients that I speak to where I need to tell them like, hey, I agreed to put out like thumbnails. I agreed to give you like 5 per month on like a constant basis, but I can't do that. It's way too much work. Now that I've gotten into the thick of it, we never signed a contract, so am I able to switch it to bi-monthly? And either they'll say yes or they'll say no. And if they say no, you have the option to quit so long as you keep it in your contract that you're allowed to quit. That's another crazy thing too, is signing contracts can be very, very stressful and scary. So, but the more that you sign and the more that you read them, the more you start to recognize consistent like strange things and like things to be aware of. So yeah, you get better at that too. Get better at all of it. I legit thought that this guy vanished off the face of the earth after composing for BB3. The game's called Projections. And it's a hack and slash? God stops. Huh. Wowie zowie. Oh. Yeah, no, Mario RPG. What a quality game. The way I knew Mario RPG was like a big ass deal was when I heard Alex Hirsch name drop it at some point, and he specifically said like, "Oh yeah, I love Mario RPG. I love the forest theme," and I was like, "Oh, the forest theme. That's the one that PBG played in the one video, and then I liked it." That game very clearly touched people in a way that they hadn't been by other RPGs of the time. The way like combat works in RPGs, people have found a lot of quirky ways to deal with combat. Undertale probably being the most contemporary example of a compelling way to handle combat, where it's like pacifism dealt in such a way that's still fun. I feel like lots of games handled pacifistic routes, but it was Undertale that embedded it into the story and made it feel really special when you do it. In the butt, but the thing about I put my hand to my face and then the sad music turned on. This is me when I know I can't go to Mario Land. I'll never be able to walk amongst the actual children that belong there and kick them over as I look for Mario. Because all I want to do is shake his hand, Mario. That's all I want to do. Much better. Yeah, what the hell was I talking about? I don't remember. Oh well. Then stools. I gotta drop some pretty heavy stools, ladies and gentlemen. Let's deal with the fat one right here. Ugh, give me the fat one. He can keep me warm in the winter, and he can keep me all shady in the summertime. No, you know what Mario game I had been playing? I played it yesterday. Was Mario Wonder. Now that game, pretty cool. I must admit, pretty cool. It's hold on, where's the chairs? There you are. It's got this whole thing about if you get like a Wonder Seed or something, you'll, in each collective level, you'll go into like this weird trippy other world. It's really unclear why that happens. And honestly, my first assumption would just be, well, who cares? It's a Mario Course Complete game. It's not like the story matters at all. But I don't know. I've been thinking lately, a lot of games, a lot of like modern games, even when they don't need to, will emphasize a story. Like even platformers, people will want you to like emphasize some sort of like story or just reason for us to get in there and start, you know, gaming the game. I feel like we as a society have just collectively decided some sort of story or narrative reason is just a lot more interesting than just turning on the game and just playing it for the sake of playing it. It's been a while. It's been a real while since I've played like an RPG that wasn't heavily focused on some sort of story. Like, for example, when I was getting through, when I was just playing and enjoying, Persona 3. That game is very just video gamey, you know what I mean? Like, it requires you to do like a lot of grinding. And I remember people have made the argument again and again, grinding is not fun. It's true. Grinding is not fun in like Pokemon, right? Because you feel like you're not getting anywhere. Persona 3, and I guess the other Persona games, but I never really thought about it the same way. Persona 3 makes you feel like you're grinding, and the grinding is fun. Like, you are both grinding in the dungeon, and you're grinding outside of the dungeon. You're going to, like, town, and you're, like, building relationships with your friends. That's the idea of Persona. That's why Persona is so special and different from just the rest of the Shin Megami Tensei games. Because the Shin Megami Tensei games are, like, you know, complicated dungeon crawlers, where, as far as I can tell, the story isn't the most important part. It's not really highly emphasized like Persona is. But as the Persona games have gone on, the emphasis became more on the story and the characters than it did about the dungeon crawling. It really feels like by 5, the dungeon crawling became a total backseat concept. And I think a lot of games are doing that, where whatever the gameplay involved is a tad secondary. And I'm mostly talking about like AAA titles, massive games. Yeah, where like the gameplay part feels entirely secondary to whatever story they're trying to tell. They're very focused on just making an interactive narrative exclusively. I'm mostly thinking about games like The Last of Us, for example. The Last of Us as a game, I don't know, it's fine. Maybe some people like it as a video game, but to me, it's a shooter, and there's lots of shooters like it. The reason people got into it at all is the story. And you know, I suppose that's fine. I actually remember when Heavy Rain came out, despite how much David Cage is not a cool person, fair enough. I remember when Heavy Rain came out, and nobody knew anything about any of David Cage's weird shit. And we're just like, oh man, cool interactive story game. Fun. Very nice. And I got super engaged in the murder mystery of Heavy Rain that I didn't even care that most of the gameplay was just like weird QuickTime events and shit. Not sure if it's the stream or me buffering hard right now. My bitrate says it's fine. Maybe reset. I'm not sure what to tell you. Tad strange. It would appear that we're okay. Let me know if it like keeps up. Projection is a hack and slash set in a very trippy and colorful looking world. My best explanation is imagine if LSD Dream Emulator was developed by Devil May Cry 5 development team. That's fun. That's fun. Is it in 3D? I'd play that. I'd play the shit out of that. But yes. So, what was I talking about? Yeah, no, so narrative-based games are... They're sort of at the forefront. I think because a lot of people just love the idea of, like, an interactive movie. People were dreaming about that since, like... What, like the age of the FMVs? Your Rippers, your Gabriel Knight 2... All these, like, heavily story-based games. But games like that were at least puzzle games, even if Ripper wasn't an especially good puzzle game. Those types of story-based games had gameplay that was sort of complementary to an FMV style. In the case of something like The Last of Us, you're taking the story of like a shooter and you're taking the gameplay of like your typical shooter and you're emphasizing the story first. And this is just coming from somebody that wasn't super compelled by Last of Us 1 or 2. There was so much work put into making like the cutscenes feel real and the acting was very good and all that stuff. The story as a whole didn't really grab me because it's just another zombie narrative, and I'm so damn sick of zombies the way people are about Marvel movies. So even at the time, even when it came out, I was still like, oh boy, okay, all right, I don't care. And even if the story was like super interesting and compelling, the gameplay itself, I don't know. It's like, this was probably something that was a lot more interesting, a lot more fascinating when it first happened, right? When it first came out and people were experiencing things like this, where like conversation is happening. It feels like you're walking through a cutscene rather than just watching it and not interacting with it at all. You know, that kind of stuff is fascinating, interesting, neat, I suppose. But then when I see it everywhere, when I see it in like the Spider-Man games, when I see it in when they totally reinvent God of War from the ground up, when I see it like everywhere, it becomes less special. And it makes me realize, you know, once that like specialness wears off and my critical brain takes over, I start to think, well, interesting game mechanic is what should be at the forefront of your interactivity, right? I remember Action Button Reviews, and look, this guy actually made a video game, so he knows a lot more about this shit than I do. I remember Action Button Reviews saying, like, The Last of Us was like the natural progression of shooters or some shit, and I disagree. I don't think it has anything to do with being a shooter. The gameplay mechanic could have been anything in Last of Us. The gameplay mechanics could have been just like a 3D platformer where you run away from the zombies all the time and then occasionally kill them. You could have written the narrative that other people kill them and all you do is run away like a little pussy. You could have easily done that and the story really wouldn't have changed all that much. Maybe the second one would have changed a bit because there's this emphasis on killing. But even then, there's a lot you can do in a game, even though your main character kills, where you don't need to suddenly end up playing a first-person shooter. The shooting part had nothing to do with anything. It's just, it was incidental, I guess is what I'm getting at. And that's, it's not as cool. It's not as neat as, like, boomer shooters, right? Where the whole point is, like, the shooting and, like, getting good at taking down different enemies with different weaponry, being placed in all these like unique and quirky environments with unique and like quirky enemies to fight. Just like these gauntlets of shooting people up. The reason Doom was really, really cool was that they put you at like the forefront of just murdering demons. You know? There's such a joyous simplicity to that. Just being given like a bunch of ridiculous guns and shooting someone that absolutely, irrefutably is evil, so that is not even part of the discussion. You can have games where you examine the nuances of demons and you don't shoot them, but that's not what Doom was. And that's not what a lot of shooters are. Shooters are games where you shoot. Anyway. It is 3D, about $10 on Steam. Ooh, can't be clear enough due to a different currency. I'll look it up real quick, because I'm curious enough. I've been making a little list of stuff to buy in the near future. I was sent a funny little thing by a funny little man. Alright, what was it called again? Projections. Oh, like, it's more like $13. Projections is just a game where you're always like throwing your emotions and damage onto somebody else without dealing with it yourself. Projections is a game where you are just a pile of light that's being smacked against hard surfaces. Projections is just a series of assigned projects that are being placed on a table. Stupid. I'm picking different music, and you can't stop me. What it? Enhanced soundtrack? That's what it called itself. Enhanced soundtrack. Yeah. I loved this game. This game was real fun. You know, that's one thing about like older games and why you need to remember your history. There's a lot of really good games out right now. I ain't denying that at all. But something about older games was that they emphasized gameplay a lot more than story. And in this day and age where story is taking the forefront of a lot of games and replacing gameplay, y'all really need to remember some of those iconic games, and why they were so fun was because they strictly focused on the gameplay. Only now am I starting to really appreciate like old RPGs and just the way like Dragon Quest would plop you in the middle of a field and just be like, go on an adventure. I'm starting to get why that was so compelling to people. It's because the simplicity made it really easy to get into, right? Like, you're some guy that works some job that's like annoying as shit, and then you come home and you want to de-stress, and so you turn on your adventure game and you just go wandering around, and you meet monsters and you create your own stories. You know, it's like it's like an adventure of sorts. But the thing is those sorts of RPGs are definitely like an acquired taste as well, because I don't think a lot of people get into the spirit of just like wandering and creating your own adventures by beating up a bunch of demons. When I compare something like Dragon Quest to something like Tears of the Kingdom, for example, I think about how unique a world like that is. This like how like retro Japanese RPGs were, where they would just plop you on the proverbial grid world and you would just wander around. You can almost think about it like Pokemon, but it's so different aesthetically, and the combat is so different, the way they handle that, that it's it's a completely different experience. And it's one that, like, I appreciate enough to come back to it casually, but I've yet to get super invested in a Dragon Quest's main story. Because it's not like Dragon Quest is devoid of story. It's just that the whole experience is that of an adventure. Excuse me. It's just an adventure. And there isn't some attempt to, like, pull the rug out from under you or be, like, subversive. It's the definition of a classic. And the same way that I love Wizard of Oz, despite it being so very, like, simple, it's still a classic and it's still lovable. So I guess that's what I'm getting at. Lately, I've been thinking a lot more about, like, older games and appreciating them for what they brought into the world. I think very often we will forget our history and disregard it, just saying, like, yeah, okay, it was a classic, but that doesn't matter. And it's like, well, it does. It does. You gotta know where you came from to know where you're going. And to appreciate those classics makes you better at creating new stuff. Not that I'm about to make a video game, but you know what I mean. Okay. Hey, Neo, what's good? I was just talking about video games, how, like, older video games were cool because I'm old and dying. I just got done changing my diaper and I wanted to talk about how old games are cool. But as for turn-based RPG, I can't really relate in the topics, I'm afraid. Never played any Persona games. I find them very unfair and uneventful. God, I wish I read that before I said my whole deal. Yeah, no, I mean, I get it. If you're not able to enjoy some of those, like, retro RPGs, then you just won't enjoy it. And, you know, that's fine. I get it. They're a real acquired taste. And back when I was a kid, back when, like, Final Fantasy VII came out, like, I was the prime age to enjoy Final Fantasy VII. Or at least I was when I discovered it. Come to think of it, I think I was a bit too young when it came out, but I had it when I was like a 10-year-old or something. I got it at a church, like, garage sale or whatever it was they were doing. And that game, I thought, like, oh my god, it blew me away. Oh, this is so cool. But as soon as we got to, like, the field, and I was doing mostly take-turn combat, that was the point where I was like, never mind, I don't like this anymore. It took me a while to really appreciate take-turn combat. I had no friggin' patience. I mean, growing up, I had ADD, so that could have easily been a contributing factor. But regardless, I am making up for lost time at this point. Now I'm looking back on those old games and being like, I want to give them a fair shake now. Now I have a lot more patience, and now I can kind of appreciate them for what they are. I'm really glad that I played Persona 3, because it has been putting my mind in a certain place where I can appreciate these older games that are entirely based on the gameplay and nothing more. God, and there's just some games that they just fucking front load you with so much shit story that I don't care about. There's games where, and you know what? I go to bat for indie games so often. And that being said, I think a lot of indie games need to get over themselves and stop front loading me with a bunch of their shit story. There's a game. What is it? Which game am I going to properly insult? Spark the Electric Gesture 3, I'm pretty sure. No, 2 is the same way. Spark the Electric Gesture is a really fun game. I love that game. I love 2. I love 3. I never really played 1 because it was a side scroller. But Spark the Electric Gesture. 2 and 3, super fun. Go and play them. 3 is better than 2, admittedly, but 2 is also really fun. It's just the controls are better in 3. That being said, the story's friggin' nonsense. I struggle to understand what the hell they're saying. There's no voice acting. It's all text. Even though it's 3D cutscenes, it's so awkward. I don't like it. I'm sorry. Person that made the story, I was struggling so hard to follow it. And by the tail end, we end up in like the White Room in the Matrix, and I'm like, what is this story actually about? They start like referencing OCs I don't know. Probably because I played through all of 2, but I wasn't paying attention. I think they were referencing 2. And it's like the best part of this game is the gameplay, going through the courses. That part's awesome. Sonic, and for some context, Spark the Electric Gesture 2 and 3, the ones in 3D, take a lot of notes from like Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Adventure 1, but mostly 2. In their like course complete nature. And the way they design levels, super fun. Oh my god. Great. Recommend it. 10 out of 10. Great fun all around. Now, Sonic Adventure 2 has a funny story that's like weird. Oh, I'm doing good, by the way. I like some older grandpa. Thank you. Thank you. Older games. Beautiful games. I'm sorry. Gotta finish my thought. Sonic Adventure 2 has a fun story. It's a fun story in Sonic Adventure 2. That's fantastic. It's so goofy and weird and dumb, and I love it. It's awesome. I get into it so easily. It's got like the goofy bio lizard and shit. Wonderful. 10 out of 10. I can get behind it because it's so ridiculous. This like Spark the Electric Gesture story, every character's so flat. None of the characters have any like life to them. They come off either like tropey or like they have no personality at all. And this is very mean to say, I get it, because this is an independent property. Clearly they cared a lot about their OC because they put them in everywhere, but they need work. They need a lot more life to them. They're really not interesting enough. It's not enough to just have serious people talking in a room about serious things. You need to have them like doing things that are like relatable, interesting, funny. I mean, people don't need to necessarily be funny to be captivating, but it's a good start. It's usually where I start with my characters. And that much of the experience gets sullied. The longer I'm playing through the game, the more I just want to skip every single cutscene, and that's a bad sign. So yeah, like, you can have a video game with a story, obviously. But my problem is that you can't just put in any old story. You still need to be good at it, even if your game is good. You know, it's still a criticism when you mess up the story. Anyway. Hayden cutting it real deep with the independent game designers that... I'm pretty sure that game is like, I think, $15. But it bothers me. It bothers me because I want them to do better. And I think it's fair to give some level of criticism. Just because I want them to do better, and I feel like they can do better. Let's line these up with each other. This song was in, they used this in, oh, I thought this started in Ocarina of Time. Pardon me. I'm a fool. What's the chat say? The Underground City, speaking of old games, finished Thief Gold recently, and dude, this game really peaks after like level 2. Yeah? Does it? I need to play more of that game. I complained about it a little bit when I was playing Gloomwood, but I need to play more. Because it was really fun. I just need to get over the quirky controls. Some indies tend to do stories better than other, really, with or without voice acting. Lamentium, for example, is just text, but it doesn't waste your time, making the story really thought-provoking. Yeah. It can be all text and you can make it compelling, obviously. Danganronpa it's got some voice acting, like it's got voice acted cutscenes and like little voice bites here and there, but it's mostly reading. And that game is like, the story's dumb as hell, but it's weirdly fun because of all the crazy things the story does. So it can be all text, and the story can even be like kind of dumb, but just make it compelling, you know? And that's not an easy thing to ask of someone. Which is why you show your writing to people and you get a reaction from them. You get feedback of any kind. What's my thoughts on Starfield? It's just like fucking ugh. Is that reaction enough or should I go on? Like, Starfield is just, first of all, it's not even a game that, like, I would begin to like, okay? Because it's like a Bethesda game all about wandering around, and as far as I can tell, it's a game where you, like, mine and craft, but it's not Minecraft, and you're, what the hell am I doing? Yeah, it's a game where you mine and craft. It's, according to other people, I've never really played it. According to other people, like, the game glitches up a lot. The game can even, like, break a lot. The story, I guess, just really is, like, too slow for a lot of people to get into. I don't know, man. Bethesda games kind of lost me a long time ago. I'm of the mind that I loved Oblivion and I loved Skyrim because I could explore in this open world game, and there weren't a lot of games like it, you know? But nowadays, there's tons of open world games. Just the ability to, like, go anywhere that you want doesn't excite me anymore. Maybe it excites people that are a bit younger than me and haven't played a bunch of open world games. Maybe, I don't know. But it seems like all Starfield has is you're exploring and now it's in space. And even the space isn't super well emphasized. You have a lot of, like, AI generated planets that are there just for the sake of, like, collecting stuff. At that point, I started thinking about other pseudo open world games made for the PC back in the day, like Star Commander Privateer. Once again, a game that I haven't really played, but the description of it sounds a lot like Starfield. What was it? Spoony1 had described Wing Commander Privateer as a game where you play as this wandering rogue, or well, you can choose to be a rogue. You could be a lot of classes in Privateers, apparently. And it's all about traveling the galaxy, keeping fuel on your ship, collecting, finding, like, you know, items, lore intel, landing on random planets and doing a little, like, excavating, a little, like, roaming around. And the whole game's just about exploration, discovery. That's really cool. The only hang-up is that it's not in 3D. It's a 2D game where you're clicking around menus. I get why that's not very compelling to a lot of people. I get that. And that was the reason I didn't really try it back in the day, even though Spoony recommended it to me. It's just like... It's like Thief. It's like Thief Gold. How I was saying I need to get used to the quirky controls. I think if I got used to Privateer's weird, quirky aesthetic of looking like a point-and-click adventure game, maybe I could enjoy it. Maybe I could get into it. I want to give it more of a try than I want to give Starfield a try. Because Starfield, to me, just seems like one of a million games made by a company that I'm sort of so-so about these days. I don't really care about Starfield. You know? It's a way popular game, but I'm not really of the age where I care whether or not I'm playing the most popular game. And also, I'm not the type of YouTuber where my career is based entirely around playing the latest games. So yeah. I mean, do you like Starfield? If you like Starfield, I would be happy to hear why. Keep in mind, when I complain about these things, it's entirely my opinion. Like, it's not my goal to ruin anyone's experience or, like, tear them down for having an opinion. I actually want to, like, start conversations with folks. I want to hear, like, well, if you like Starfield, why? Because I really do not. I love the story of Heartless and Dreadful. The cast is so damn memorable. Heartless and Dreadful. Oh, that's that one that you recommended to me, right? It's got, like, a very clear inspiration of Devil May Cry. And it's also, like... No, I think it's in 3D. Is that game also... It has, like, 2D sprites on a 3D background? I feel like I'm getting that wrong. You get the big bottle. I'm a lover of Skyrim Fallout, but Starfield was boring? Huh? I guess the Starborn stuff was fun, but its worlds just wasn't as fun to be in as Skyrim and Fallout. Yeah. Yeah? See, that's my point exactly. Yeah, that's the one. I see. That was another Heartless and Dreadful. That was another game where they front-loaded me with a lot of story. I think at the time I just wanted to get to the gameplay first, so I'll fully admit I skipped a lot of the story the first time I played. but there's, you know, it's not too late for me to get back into it. If it really is that compelling. Starfield was fun, and I did like it, but it was just kind of boring. Wait, how can it be fun and boring? But overall, I'd say it was good, just kind of boring after the main story and 2 other quest lines. Wait, how can it be good but boring? Because that sounds like a major strike against it. You know, I would really dislike coming back from, like, a hard job at work or something. Or, like, breaking away from whatever responsibilities life holds over me to go and play a game that's kind of boring. Maybe, do you not mean boring, but you mean, like, it's just slow or something? Because boring I would consider a very big negative. Boring I would consider, like, the story's not very good, the gameplay just has you, like, wandering, and you don't have any desire to get, like, creative with the game. You have no desire to engage with the world. That's what boring sounds like to me, and if that's the game, I don't know, man. I would not like that game, personally. The NASA punk aesthetic? Ooh. I guess I sort of see what you mean. I haven't seen a lot of the game, but I can kind of see that. Never seen that look in a game before. Yeah, I mean, aesthetic is very valid. That's the type of thing where, like, even if you don't like Starfield, you can look at the visuals and just go like, oh man, I wish this was the whole game. And then you take those visuals and you put them in something good, you know? Did you know that Hayao Miyazaki, when he was a kid, he loved this one particular movie that I cannot remember the name of it at all, but he went to the theater, he watched it, there was like some animated woman, and he was like, oh my god, I love her, oh, this movie, it's so good, this is such a great film, I love it so much. And then years later, he grew up and he went back to it and he realized, wow, this movie fucking sucks. And that was part of Hayao Miyazaki's desire to want to make movies and make animation. Was he was like, this film touched me in a way that was very like profound, but admittedly it wasn't actually very good. I think I can do better. That's why it's good to be critical, because you tend to be tapping into what makes a story good and improving upon it over time. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're actually being critical. It's pretty clear when someone is just like dismissive for really lame reasons. The more conversations you have that just feel like that, the more you understand, like, okay, all right, this is not a very like educated discussion, I can tell. Also, this is probably more detail than I would need to bring in this background, but this is a background we're going to whip out like for more than 100 frames of this episode, with the characters like doing different things around it. So yeah, I would like it to look relatively well detailed. Like when it was fun, but most of the time it was boring or slow. So it's like, okay, you could say they stumbled upon some like fun gameplay loops at the start, but then the back half of the game just slowed down tremendously. Okay, I could get that. I could understand that. That's how a lot of people describe stuff like Wind Waker, where they'll be like, you know, oh, I love the first like, I don't know, 6 hours of the game, but then after that it like slows down so much and I just get like so bored. People genuinely feel that way about Wind Waker, but they still consider it a classic, so they're onto something. Now, if what I heard is true, you know, the rumor come out, if what I heard is true, I think something working against Starfield is they were using AI to build a lot of the maps that you explore. And I believe they did that because they had this business model of, oh, quantity over quality, you know? Like, we want the world to feel really big, but in doing so, you just made a lot of levels that are boring. And the world becomes remarkably small again, you know? Like if your only thought is, oh, we need a lot of worlds, you don't quite understand why the worlds are there in the first place. Like, if in Mario Bros. 3, there were like 10,000 levels in it, but every level, or every other level, whatever, was just like a flat plane with the occasional hill for you to jump over, or the occasional power-up to get, or the occasional enemy to stomp on, and none of it is built with like an aesthetic or a theme. If it's just there, you've missed the point of Mario. You've missed the point of why these levels are even important. It's not enough for Mario to just like run and jump. It's the fact that he's going through crazy obstacle courses, right? And that's my feeling when you start using AI to build levels. I guess like in a roguelike, but that's different. You're not changing the level design. A roguelike usually means randomly generated enemies that have some semblance of rules to them, right? Like Hades, for example, you will get like randomly generated sets of enemies and encounters, but a lot of it has an internal logic that the developers had to think out, had to plan, like, how do we make this fun? High highs and low lows. Like, if I want to explore in space, I play No Man's Sky. I heard that game really picked up, by the way. I guess I can relate with Dread a little bit with too much story, but from a different perspective. Like, I really want to get into New Vegas, but holy fuck, most of it is just go here and there and talk. And you know what's so crazy is people are so different, right? Because you're talking about New Vegas, and the only thing I ever hear from people is New Vegas is the best game in the world and the story's tremendous. But you're telling me, oh man, I want to get into New Vegas, but the story's just so friggin' dense and stupid. Or maybe not stupid, but like, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot. It sounds like it's too much for you to really care about. And instead instead it's like putting you off actually genuinely getting into the game. That's interesting. That's an interesting note, because in that way, that affects the experience, and it makes you not want to pursue playing through the game or getting through the story. It's far too intimidating. Now, sometimes you will be intimidated by too much story, too much this or that. But if you get past that like threshold, once again, quirky controls, too much story, whatever you want to call it. Once you get past that threshold of uncomfortability, you begin to appreciate its eccentricities. And you can actually look at it and go, okay, yeah, the story is sort of front-loaded, but man, there's a lot of good stories in here. Like, once you find the stuff that you get invested in, you forgive the long road it took to get there. I call this the Dark Souls effect, where when Dark Souls came around, people's initial reactions, even like game critics and stuff, was just, man, this game's hard as shit and I hate it. It's so weird, you know? And then it was only when Let's Players started playing through this, you know, quirky game that they started realizing, wow, this game's actually pretty damn sick. They're really onto something. Then they made Dark Souls, which was a lot more refined. I'm sorry, I should have specified Demon Souls was the first one, where all the critics were like, man, this game is like weird as hell. And no, I'm not going to give it a chance. It's too hard. I can't get into it. It was only once that cult following grew into something so massive that now they have a hugely successful franchise. And the combat of Demon Souls, and then later Dark Souls, is like an industry standard in action exploration games, Metroidvania games. So 3D Metroidvania games specifically. It's all when you allow yourself to experiment with art and you expose yourself to different forms of art and let yourself out of that comfort zone. Allow yourself to see if you can adapt. Give it that college effort. For artistic sake, you may discover new interests, new things that you never even realized you were super into. So yeah, so there is no like surefire way. That's why this is a discussion and not like absolutism, right? When you're giving your opinion on anything artistic, there is no like right answer. That's what people mean when they say like there is no right answer about art. Even if that feels sort of wrong because schools taught us that there's a right answer for everything. Not with art. Not with art. Art is a discussion, and you'll come to your own conclusions, and then years later, those conclusions will change. So yeah. I think it's good to allow yourself to experiment a bit, to appreciate eccentricities of video games, but if after you've done all that, you've played through Starfield enough, and it still feels boring, then I guess Starfield is just boring. Sorry. Todd Howard, sorry. At least it's not fucking broken. God, and then there's some games where it goes beyond art, and you're just like, why is this game broken right out the gate? That's a completely different discussion. When a game comes out broken, honest to God, a lot of that isn't quite an artistic reason. Sometimes it is. But a lot of the time when a game comes out broken, that's just because of like business shit, which is a totally different conversation. But still unnecessary one, which mostly boils down to just like, man, game design's hard. And sometimes you just do not get the resources that you actually need. or you do not know how to handle the resources that you're given. And then it just comes out bad, and you're like, well, damn. Or you're like Todd Howard, and we had Fallout 76, which was great. Ooh, you like Fallout 4 more than New Vegas? Oh my god. That's the type of thing that gets you shot in New York City. Question, have you played Jenny LeClue? It sounds like a fun like point and click adventure game from the 90s. Like that would be marketed to kids or something. Jenny LeClue? Is it? Was I right? I don't hate Dark Souls. In fact, I enjoy these games. I just hate that every third-person Melee game tries to be Dark Souls. It's true. Say Fallout 76 is great one more time. Satire, parody, promise. I've never even played it, actually. All I hear is the wonderful horror stories about it. Yeah, no, Dark Souls is interesting. I've come around to enjoy Dark Souls 1 and 3, but I hate their bosses. And yeah, it is pretty annoying that, like, every Melee action game just wants to do Dark Souls again. I mean, you do that because either you're lacking creativity or you want your game to be successful, so you market the popular thing, which is, you know, pretty uncreative. So, yeah, I'll call that out for what it is. When I think of Dark Souls, I get a little disappointed. I get a little sad, I'll admit, because I don't love it the way other people do. And so I get this deep feeling of FOMO. I feel like, oh, my brain is wrong. I don't like Dark Souls. Oh no. But I really don't. And the thing that I don't like is the bosses. I really genuinely love just exploring, which is why Elden Ring held my interest a bit longer. But yeah, even Elden Ring requires you to eventually deal with fucking bosses, and I hate it. I hate it so much. It's so boring. I don't fucking care. And the thing about like a game like Dark Souls bosses is that there are like tricks of the trade. There are ways to get around it. And I suppose if I explored enough around, I would find those tricks of the trade. But to find the tricks of the trade, I need to like do a whole lot of like wandering, and that level of exploration doesn't engage me. So it's like it's like all the eccentricities that make up Dark Souls. I've played it enough to know that I don't like it, right? Like I was just saying, oh, give yourself the college try, see if you can get into it. Sometimes you do, and you realize you still don't like it. And you know, that's okay. Dark Souls 3 seems to be my favorite out of the whole trilogy. Yeah, it's a trilogy. Because we're not counting Bloodborne. Yeah, Dark Souls 3 feels like my favorite. I like the combat of like holding up your shield and waiting for a point to attack. That's pretty fun. But yeah, as soon as I get to a boss, I'm just like, fuck this. Fucking just waiting in a damn room, having to dodge roll like 9,000 times. Just, it's so much unfun than just like grinding through an RPG or something, you know? But hey, I don't need to like every game in the world. Not important to me. And once again, I did not make it my career to be good at video games. I can be dog shit at video games. And still appreciate them artistically. What else are we talking about? When I hear people say that the stylish action games require no effort in comparison to Souls-like, those people actually exist, I can clearly tell they've never fought Cerberus and Devil May Cry 3. Yeah, no, it's like spectacle fighters are interesting because, like, the thing about Devil May Cry and the reason it gets so difficult is because there's this emphasis on style. And the style makes the combat, like, really quirky and weird. And understanding the flow of a Devil May Cry game is what makes you good at the combat, right? It's just a, you know, and maybe that's just a way of describing literally anything, or another way of just saying get good. But the important thing is that, like, there is no absolutism here. When you play through a Dark Souls game, you are just a person that is attracted to that kind of combat style. You know, that is entirely you, right? When you play through a Devil May Cry game, same story. You are just a person that's really attached to this kind of, like, style system, and it makes your brain juices go... And that's the end of the discussion. There is no one or the other. These two live together in harmony, and one should not be deleted just because Dark Souls is popular right now. Both must exist in tandem, and games like Devil May Cry must continue to exist. Otherwise, we delude ourselves into thinking that one is better than the other. That is the trap that people fell into during the rise of 3D graphics. Was people started thinking, oh, well, we need to take all of our franchises and bring them into 3D, even though a lot of those franchises did not translate into 3D very well. Case in point, Castlevania. I don't think... I heard that Lords of the Shadow Lords, whatever that was called, I heard people say that that one wasn't half bad, and that they actually liked it a fair sum. I'll just say this much. What I enjoy about Castlevania is rooted a lot in its side-scrolling nature. If you could create like a Castlevania game, take all the mechanics and then put it in 3D and make it fun, that's great. And, you know, I encourage that a lot. But it seems like what Castlevania is a side-scroller. Because even when they were releasing Castlevania 64 and all that, I know that that game had like a troubled development, but even so, Castlevania Symphony of the Night really set a standard of what you could do with like a Castlevania game. It was very different. It turned it into an RPG, sure, but it was fun. And I think right now, that's the only standard that we can work off of until somebody figures out how to make that work in 3D. And, you know, even if someone figures out, hey, I've made a Castlevania game in 3D and it is really fun, that's great, but that doesn't remove the fact that 2D Castlevania is still fun. Mario can be put in 3D, but Mario Wonder just came out recently. That's fun. And so was Mario Odyssey. You know? These are all just styles. They're not evolutions. No, I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do. No, and that's my point, is that they're wrong. They're wrong, and this is a trap that you find yourself in when you're not actually thinking about, like, video games, when you're not actually thinking about the artistry of interactive mediums, when you're strictly thinking about, like, beating a different piece of art. Because that's what it is when people talk like this, right? They're saying, oh, a painting is better than a comic book because the painting looks like real life and the comic book looks like a cartoon. That's dumb as shit. And that's the logic when you're talking about Dark Souls combat compared to any other kind of action game combat or any kind of combat. When people just lean on one thing, you're not thinking artistically. You're not even thinking like for the sake of like entertainment. Like you're not thinking about like, oh, what makes the game fun? You're just saying over and over with different words. You're just saying, I love Dark Souls. And that's great. And not Dark Souls is perfect. You're saying you like Dark Souls. That's all this discussion is. You know? So go play Dark Souls. Or watch the 9,000 videos where people say Dark Souls is perfect. And, you know, get your fix, because I'm sure that would be like a lovely afternoon. I love watching videos where people talk about how like Donkey Kong 64 isn't all that bad. because I love Donkey Kong 64. So see, everybody needs their fix. You go get yours. Devil May Cry is one of the best game series ever. Ooh, my goodness. Very, like, planted your feet in the sand about that one. It's a fun series. It's fascinating, too. Because, like, the first one was really good. They tapped into something so fascinating while they were making Resident Evil 4. By the way, Neo, do you know about that story? About how Devil May Cry was imagined up while they were trying to make Resident Evil 4? Dante's original name was Tony Redgrave, and he took like a cocktail of drugs and had a robot arm, and he was running through Resident Evil 4. I think it was still taking place in a castle, and he was running through mowing down hordes of zombies while getting style points. That genuinely was like the idea for 4 until the director looked at this and was like, okay, wait, no. let's make it its own game because it is fun. But this can't be Resident Evil. Blizzard's of Shadow is pretty good, albeit outstays its welcome a little bit. It's basically God of War with a Castlevania reskin. Okay. Souls fans when a funny white-haired guy wearing a blue coat challenges them to a fight. Dad, I have a question. Why do your profile pic have hair but you don't? Let me look. What do you mean? They're bald. I don't see what you mean, yeah. That's a chrome dome right there. You know what, too? Because you brought up God of War. God of War was kind of in the same boat as Dark Souls for a long time, you know? Like, tons of games were like, I want to be an action game, and therefore I'm gonna be God of War. And to be fair, I love the combat of God of War. It's really fun. It did outstay its welcome a bit because it was showing up in loads and loads of games. That one game, Darksiders. Darksiders had like, what, 3 titles, I think? And all of them were in the God of War style. What was it? Dante's Inferno was a very clear, like, just Christian reskin of God of War. No offense to the guys, but I'm just saying that is how the game felt. So yeah, so I get why they wanted to reimagine God of War in like a new way when they made the new version of God of War. That being said, though, that combat style I still really love, and I want like games to still make games. God, that sounded so damn stupid the way I said that. I want like more people to make games with the combat style of retro God of War. Because I still pick up that game every now and then and I'm like, holy fuck, this is still fun as shit. Maybe you can add your own like quirks and changes to make it more interesting. Maybe it's a little too hack and slash for you. But that God of War combat style, chef's kiss. You really should, like, you shouldn't take it for granted. That was damn fun. All right, time to turn the 3D model off. How's it look? It's just done loading. Yeah, not bad. Okay, great. No, they ain't. Grandpa's blind. You mean, Neo. You're just being mean. It's a joke. No, it's not. It's just being mean, dude. You need to get better jokes, man. While I do enjoy DMC 1, I even played to replay it someday. I feel like it didn't age quite as well as 3, 4, and 5. Yeah. I mean, 1's better than 2. I think 1 was mostly a product of them trying to figure out what Devil May Cry was, you know? It was the starting ground. It's the Spyro the Dragon of its, franchise. Like, it's cool, and fun, and like, you know, it's got all the iconic stuff that you know about Devil May Cry in it, but it is clunky, yeah, and it's not quite as iconic. Also, Dante's not as fun. 3 is when he got really fun. For some people, you could even say Devil May Cry started at 3, because technically it's a prequel. Technically it started at the very beginning, so yeah. You're super nice. I don't know about that. I didn't have enough air to say that. Well, I'm not seeing any of that yet lately. Lately, I'm seeing a lot of deep-seated cruelty and making my heart go doki doki, dog. Honestly, don't really like God of War. Wow, okay, you're fucking banned. Didn't play the classics myself, but one thing I know about them is that there's no enemy lock-on, which makes the combat really disorienting. So, yeah, there's no enemy lock-on, but the combat isn't built with, like, lock-on in mind. So, the way your blades are, the way they function, it's sort of like a whip mechanic, which is interesting because, like, I get why it adapted very well into a 3D Castlevania game, right? You have, like, they're called the Blades of Chaos, and it's basically just 2 big whips, and almost all of your attacks are long range. So the whole game is about you attacking long range. The only time you want to like bring someone in close is if you're doing a grab. And usually the grab means you punch someone to get health, or you just throw them somewhere, or you give them another like violent death. So the idea of a lock-on isn't really necessary because all your attacks are meant to be long range. You're thrown into the fray with a bunch of enemies, and the idea is to just like knock several of them out at once. Now you do end up fighting bosses. That I think is when the combat starts to fall away from itself. The like long range combat kind of falls away from itself, and it becomes more of a game of dodging. But the game has fixed cameras too, so I don't really see why a lock-on would be super useful. They do have it in Devil May Cry, and that has fixed cameras as well. But Devil May Cry uses things like guns, which require lock-on for you to like shoot long distance. So that makes sense. And also you're using like a sword, which has very limited range. So for Devil May Cry, I understand it in that sense. For God of War, I feel like the combat was less fixated on a lock-on. I don't know, that's my 2 cents. So with the lock-on in mind, I more so compared Darksiders to DMC. The aesthetic is very God of War, but the lock-on changes literally everything. Really? Literally everything? I have, let's see, Darksiders. I have Darksiders 1, 2, and 3. I should give them a try and see how they feel. Darksiders has guns as well. Okay, what? Is this just you telling me that Darksiders is a DMC ripoff and not a God of War ripoff? Because fine, okay, I'll agree with that. That's fair. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So what is this panel going to be in? It's in a... So this is the full shot as it were. Should I put in that table? It's like a table in the 3D model. I don't mind if there's not a lot here. Because I don't want too much noise. Oh my god, that fucking instrument. Let's put it in the table, let's make it a different layer, and let's just say. This is the most, like, the most dense background I'm going to be working on, so I can put in, like, the extra effort. Yeah, no, so this is a comic that's also being dubbed as, in like, video form. And I'm making this for a client. This is all their OCs and their world and stuff. So yeah, very cool. Oh, Comic is what's it called? Called Crystal View. This is episode 1, though, so you can't necessarily look it up. Yeah, kind of. More so if God of War actually tried to be DMC, because both series, while action-packed in nature, are very distinct in one another's gameplay. But I'm serious about the gun thing. You get Strife's revolvers in 1 and 2. Oh, Darksiders? Okay. Don't remember if 3 has them, because, wow, that one was boring. How much does it cost to hire you? Well, it depends. What do you need? What do you need doing? If you want like a full character done, like a full character from head to toe, that's $55 flat. Or to get me to draw something. Yeah. What are my commission prices? If you want a full body, that's $55 flat. If you want, like, a head, that's $25 flat. My prices are occasionally negotiable, but when it comes to making a character, it's pretty much like that's the cost. So you know. Do I gotta build a chair to... Oh. Yeah, it looks weird without a chair. Okay. Get you out of here, and then I will make a chair and bring it closer. If you're gonna play this game for any reason, just play it for the music, man. This is Chrono Trigger, by the way, so you know. In case any of you don't know the theme of Chrono Trigger, like a freaking Philistine. Oh, but man, that music for Chrono Trigger, goddamn, freaking perfect. More about Darksiders. So, is that game good? I have all 3 games just because I share an account with my roommate who bought them for whatever reason. Is the game fun, though? Is it actually a fun game? Because I, controversial opinion, I play fun games. So if the game is fun, I'll give it a try. Yeah, no, it's from Chrono Trigger. It is Secret of the Forest. It's a very, very famous track because it's just freaking beautiful, man. Oh, goodness me. Chrono Trigger is also one of those like RPGs that I've still not sat down and fully played, and yet I know the whole story because everyone on Earth spoiled it. So, you know, that's a shame, but I still feel like one of these days I want to sit down and really genuinely experience it. Chrono Trigger is one of those games that, like, it's so old and such a, like, small file that you can actually just play it on your phone. I remember the first time I started playing it, I had the DS version, and I was like 19 years old or something. And I was kind of getting into it, honestly. Back then, I didn't stick with it. I really feel like I should have stuck with it back then. I feel like that would have been a very pleasant, like, beginning of adulthood memory for me. But who knows? You know, there's always time to rekindle that lost love. God, I was playing quite a few games back then. I was also playing Majora's Mask for the 3DS. God damn. I had loads of fun with that. I've played so much fucking Majora's Mask. It's embedded in my DNA at this point. God, what a cool track. Video game music, like some people are so damn dismissive about video game music, but there are some fucking fire tracks in video games. I remember I was working this one job and a guy was totally just like grilling this other dude about how he didn't understand music because he liked video game music. And I remember just being so fucking pissed in that moment. Like, dude, you are an actual moron. You ain't giving video game music a chance because you're an actual moron. That being said, though, you also really shouldn't just grill someone because they have a different taste of music, man. That's dumb. That's dumb as hell. 165 for 3 guys? Yes. That sounds about right. Do you have 3 guys in mind? Woo-woo. So I'm going to class now. Good luck to me and everyone else. Thank you, Orphil, for the love. Take care. Darksiders 1 and 2 absolute must-plays. Generally speaking, Darksiders, while having very deep, stylish gameplay, are actually Zelda games in disguise. I heard about that. Yeah, they're very Zelda-centric. Yeah, they got, like, Zelda puzzles. Are they also, like, dungeon crawlers, or is it mostly about the puzzles? The fun kind of puzzles. I do like fun kind of puzzles. Controversial opinion. Yeah, no, I heard a lot about Darksiders actually being very Zelda-centric. Which is, you know, that's awful interesting. I did not see that coming, but, yeah. I remember even the titular Benjamin Yahtzee saying that Darksiders 2 was decently fun, if not just taking, like, several notes from Zelda. It seems like the worst thing he could say was that, it was very similar to Zelda. But clearly Darksiders was doing something right. Would I be able to DM you about it? Also, never say ooh woo ever again. You ain't the fucking boss of me, asshole. Also, yeah, you can DM me about it. I'm the ooh woo king. I do the woo woos. I do the doo doos. People get really touchy about ooh woo, by the way. Not just you, Neo. Like, what? People are always like, oh my god, you said ooh woo? How cringe. And I'm like, what? It's a fucking word, you dumbass. It's just a word. I've been told it's associated with furry culture, which my boyfriend's a furry, so I guess that checks out. I just love it. I think it's so damn funny. It's usually associated with cringy videos that I grew up with in the 2000s. So I love it. It's nostalgic to me. What? But yeah, send me the details, Neo. I just got done making 3 characters. Now I'm making more. Oh my god. Woo! Now, do those intersect in like a weird way? Kinda, sorta, kinda. Let's change that to... And you know what's a true fantasy action game? No argument about it whatsoever. I don't want to hear it because you're all wrong if you disagree. The Hobbit for the GameCube. Perfect. The story was great. Music's wonderful. Combat is functional. It works. The game never crashed once. You play as Bilbo Baggins. Perfect game. 10 out of 10. No arguing allowed because you're wrong. I genuinely, I love that game so much. I can tell that a lot of it is nostalgia, but that was a very well-made game, honestly. I feel like not enough people give it credit. I feel like a lot of people will go out of their way to bring up really out there games and be like, oh man, how come nobody talks about this weird broken PC game from 1989 or some shit? But never The Hobbit. I love it. Ooh, anytime you want, brother. I've never even heard of that. Never even heard of what? The Hobbit? Well, then you're missing out. You ever played on the GameCube? Didn't think so. You triggered my inner Darksiders fan now that we're talking about it, because damn, I love this series and its depiction of a religious apocalypse. Nothing is cringe if you're simply having fun and enjoying life. Exactly. Most cringe is just people having fun, you know? Right? Most fun things are cringe. Like, you ever catch yourself just having fun and you have to apologize? Isn't that weird? You have to be like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, but I really love this thing. It's like, well, dude, if you like the thing, why is it a big deal? Why is that bad? But yeah, no, Darksiders seems like a remarkably solid series. As far as I can tell. I don't know, what do I know? I don't even like Dark Souls, so gosh. What do I know? I should, maybe I should stream one of those games. If I was to stream one of the Darksiders games, should I just start with one, or should I like skip to two? Which one's like more interesting, you think? Bloop. Oh, I gotta get the floor as well. Whoops. Excuse me. You gotta have that eagle eye for intersecting lines. Okay. Ooh. Ah! Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, okay, that's good. This is gonna make up, like, a lot of frames, so... You're 17. Oh, I see. Goodness me. Never seen a GameCube? Wow. No, don't worry about it. What game was I even talking about? Oh, The Hobbit. Yeah, I mean, have you ever heard of Lord of the Rings? You basically just play as Bilbo, the uncle of Frodo, and you fight dragons and wear an invisible ring and such. Canonically, all games take place at the same time, so there's no perfect order. So long as you stay away from 3, all games are goated. Okay. Perhaps I'm throwing too much shade at 3. It's a decent game in and of itself, but it's an awful Darksiders game. Okay. I mean, in that case, I'll probably just start with 1, right? Love Lord of the Rings. I love Lord of the Rings, dude. Lord of the Rings is, like, perfect. The movie's great. The story has lasted, like, generations. Wonderful game. Wonderful game. Yeah, it's an absolute delight. Right, is this enough? Can I just upload this? Am I fucking done yet? Lord of the Rings? Never heard of it. Never heard of it, Milos. I think that you're a friggin' liar. You ever thought about that? My thing is still loading. That's why I'm stalling. Oh, frick. Oh. Sorry for swearing, everyone. Oh, my video's gonna get demonized. Which frame is this? Okay, yeah, there it is. Oh, heavens me. Oh, Dios mio. Oh, heavens to Betsy. My director is just gonna be like, I told you to just make a sketch of the background, and I'm gonna be like, I have a problem. I have to make it perfect.
Do I live under a rock? Yes, but it's also a lie.
No, it's, no, Lord of the Rings is awesome. I feel like very few people will argue with you about its quality. It's a dope little series. So we get rid of this background and we put in this, we put in, damn it. Get a whole background here. Copy. Save. We go to frame 4. Yeah, I've watched Lord of the Rings probably not 100 times, but
Probably 50 times. I have seen it a lot. I have.
like no exaggeration there. I love Lord of the Rings. I've probably definitely seen it like 100 times. Okay. Or 50 times. Whatever. Okay, let's get rid of these text boxes for a little bit while I move the characters around. These guys need to be placed on this background a bit better. Hey! Stop that. Okay. And you know what? Speaking of video, there were some great Lord of the Rings video games. You know, anybody ever played Lord of the Rings video games? They were primo. They were top tier stuff. There was Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, the video game. There was Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, the video game. And these are games that, like, I love and are honestly pretty well-made action games. Pretty well-made, like, hack and slash games. But I don't know if I could ever show them on a stream because they just have the soundtrack of the Lord of the Rings movies by Warner Brothers, the Peter Jackson movie. Like, they just have the soundtrack loudly playing on the main menu. So, and then they have the rest of the soundtrack playing throughout the game. So it's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, the video is absolutely going to get, like, deleted or taken down or something. Because a soundtrack like that, owned by Warner Brothers, they don't just demonetize you. They, like, delete the video. Potentially strike your channel, too. At least I think. That's been my experience dealing with, like, Hollywood movie soundtracks. They're very, very touchy about that kind of stuff. Which is annoying, but, I mean, if I know that that's what they're gonna do, then it's not a big deal. I just know how to work with it, you know?
Played an old one that looked like old Battlefront. I think I know what that is. Was it like... Was it one of those games where it's like you get to play as just like a random soldier and you get thrown into like some sort of war field like Battlefront would be? But Shadow of Mordor one's really fun game. Don't expect much of a story from it, though. Yeah, I mean, I get that.
Now, people told me Shadow of Mordor was, like, oddly great. Emphasis on oddly. I feel like a lot of people thought it was going to be garbage, but it actually came out pretty good.
I gotta play Shadow of Mordor. Does my roommate have Shadow of Mordor? And I don't have to buy it? Shadow. Oh. Shadow of Mordor right there. What's the file size? 42. I'll give this a try. I'll probably play it for like maybe
a couple hours, but 42 gigs, I don't know. I'd rather have other stuff on my computer that's 42 gigs. Bear with me a sec while I draw some boots. I'm gonna go for just a little bit longer, but after finishing that one background, I'm gonna wrap. Because that was like the major thing I wanted to get done today.
But I really got to place these guys. Set some stuff over. Oh, you sure did. Well, let me take a tertiary glance. Ooh. Do. Scary. We can chat later. I'll let you know, and then we can actually talk more in depth about your commission. If that's all right.
I prefer talking over text, but if you really prefer over voice chat, then so be it. I've never really been a fan of voice chat, mostly because, like, I like having my information written down, you know, so I can, like, consult it later. Also, you know, social anxiety. But that much isn't a big deal when I'm talking, like, business. I've had to do quite a few meetings recently. Okay. Can I just get you from this? Yeah, there you are. You're not gonna be complete, I know. Yeah, but you're more on the chair, as it were. Here's the... Okay. Delete you. Delete you completely. Take
you. And size you up a bit. You're actually sitting in the chair, sitting in it. Perspective is a wild thing because it sometimes doesn't make any sense to like enlarge a character this much, but once you place them against the background, it starts to make sense. And then you're like, oh, okay. All right. This is the right size. Okay. Good. Don't worry, babe. This one's on the house. What? Ah! She said. Okay. 42 gigs, like... What? Have I seen the Garfield movie trailer that got public, ironically, this month? I mean, should I? Is it a cool trailer? It shows him as a tiny kitten, and I melted inside looking at him. Aww. Are you a big Garfield fan? Are you a real Garfield A-okay? I'm back. I had to deal with some shit. Sorry. Yeah, it's all right. So, Neo, I was saying, I can a bit later talk to you more about like your commission stuff. As of right now, I'm gonna call it for this stream because I have other things that I need to deal with. The main thing I wanted to do was deal with that background. So yeah, I'll call it for now. Everybody take care, and I will get back to you, Neo. I've taken a look at the pics that you showed me. Seems like perfectly doable. So yeah, we'll talk. It may take me a bit to get through all of them because it is 3, but yeah, very doable. So yeah. Everybody take care. Bye. So glad that I got this done. Oh my gosh. Whew. And y'all be good.